Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the ELTcpd podcast. Really pleased to introduce our guest today, Nicola Prentis. Hi, Nicola, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on and for your time and for chatting today.
Pleasure. I love talking about investing.
I can't wait to hear all about it and then learn from you as well. So maybe we can start by hearing a little bit about yourself, maybe your ELT background, and then how you sort of got into investing.
Okay, so like a lot of people, I was an accidental EFL teacher because I came out of university with a philosophy degree and I didn't know what to do. So I think I temped a little bit at home and in warehouses and things. And then a friend was doing the TEFL course. So that was me off for, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it was, all over the place. And then I did a master's in it because I thought, right, now it's time to do whatever it is when people settle down. And so I was going to go back to the UK and I was going to do whatever it is properly. But as soon as I finished the course, I was back off again to Turkey because I'd been there on holiday and I really wanted to go back and live there. So I just couldn't get off the merry-go-round. But then I started materials writing. So sort of, similar entry into the publishing side of it as a lot of people again, because I just sort of fell into it, did a little bit more. And then any kind of writing really I do. But I just fell into investing by accident because none of those professions paid well. Mm-hmm. But I did have savings that I'd accumulated over a long period of time. And I just was like, what do you do with this money when it's not enough to buy a house because it's not enough for a deposit? You won't get a mortgage because you're a freelancer. And a single mother freelancer at that, so not the best kind in terms of bank's point of view. And so it was just that question of like, there is something, but what is it? And I really didn't know anything, no background in finance, nothing. But once I worked it out for myself, which took about 6 months, then I thought, well, I know how to write educational materials, so why don't I write a course for other people so they can learn? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing now. I am still materials writing and whatever else people will pay me to write, to be quite honest. Yeah. But the investing thing is really like where my interest is now.
So was it your base of savings that sort of spurred you to do something about it and sort of learn and teach yourself?
Yes, because otherwise, my sister actually had been nagging me for a long time, because she's got a proper job with the NHS and a proper pension and all that kind of stuff. And she was always saying to me, "What are you doing about a pension?" I'm just like, "Oh, boring." And I was just, because the answer wasn't doing anything, nothing at all. Mm-hmm. So, her voice in my ear was part of it, but I think it was really just this thing of what do I do with my savings? But I wish I'd listened to her years before I had.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it starts perhaps from education, like pre-work? Do you think school should be teaching us about these things? I know
yes.
You've got children yourself, so do they sort of learn these things at school?
They certainly don't learn them at school, and I've never heard anybody say. I know that there are financial literacy programs in theory, and maybe some very adventurous teachers will work it into their curriculum, but it's very much an extra. And it should be an essential, because it's not just learning about avoiding credit card debt and stuff like that, which if there is any financial education in schools, it tends to be focused on that. Mm-hmm. But it's the fact that there's this magical superpower that everybody has, that rich people know about, which is your money can make extra money for you all by itself if you know what to do with it. And if you're not afraid of the things, because people hear stock market, which is only one form of investing anyway, and they're just frightened. Mm-hmm. So they don't go near it. They think it's gambling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think the education thing also comes back to the teacher perhaps not having the education themselves in order to be able to teach others about it. So.
Definitely. You're frightened of teaching something you don't understand yourself. And, mm-hmm. Teachers will have a workplace pension, and I bet most of them don't know what it's invested in, don't know if they're paying too high fees, all of the stuff that nobody else knows.
Absolutely. Maybe they don't even know that their pension's invested. Maybe they just think they're growing.
People think a pension is a thing that will pay you money later. That's the extent of most people's knowledge, and they don't realize it's invested in the stock market, most of it probably. Mm-hmm. And so they will be afraid of investing but bored by a pension. So which is it? Is it boring, or is it too risky and exciting? Because it's the same thing.
Absolutely. We'll touch on pensions a little bit later on, but I just want to think about your sort of first introduction and where you started learning about sort of finance. Did you go onto YouTube? Did you start buying books? Like, how did you sort of learn yourself, essentially?
Well, I started off thinking that investing was trading. So trading is buying and selling shares or currency or something, and they're sitting in front of the computer and making your money. So I started looking around for courses, and there are free online courses for that. But it was beyond me, really. And I thought, well, maybe I need to pay for a course. And I did choose a course. And then ultimately I realized, because I said, right, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I should start listening to financial news and, CNN, I don't know, whatever it would be called, CNN finance report for the day or whatever. So I started listening to that, and I was like, oh, I don't really understand it. And then I think I just randomly looked up what other podcasts are there about investing that aren't this. And then I found actual investing podcasts, because trading and finance and all of that market reports and stuff, that's not investing, as I found out. That's trading, something else. And investing is just much more sort of gentle type of things where you put the money in places and it grows slowly. But it really was podcasts mainly for me. I've got some investing books. I'm working my way through them. They are quite heavy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Podcasts are generally people who've digested stuff and then telling you about it. So it's much easier.
And how can you sort of, I guess there is a distinction there between the trading and the investing. How do you know, sort of, because on YouTube, there's so many like rogue traders, literally, they like post on social media and stuff, and they say, oh, if you invest, you can get this. So how do you know what's a trustworthy source? Of course, taking out books of the equation.
I think anybody who's telling you that you can make a lot of money quickly, they are usually trading. They're often trading in crypto, which is just high level gambling and speculation. So it's anybody who tells you can make money fast, because real investing is actually a bit boring. It's putting money in for a really long time, and it's not expecting to make a return next week where you double, triple, quadrupled your money. So anything that is fast money is something to avoid, unless you really want to learn to be a trader and make that your job. And good luck.
Take that risk yourself at your own risk. And so why do you think, because you've mentioned like ELT doesn't pay that well, so why do you think money is sort of a taboo topic in ELT? Why do you think freelancers and even teachers don't really like talking about money when we're all essentially in the same boat?
I think it's such a massive thing about the education sector in general, is that you're supposed to do it out of love, out of sharing of knowledge and all this kind of stuff. And you, at the beginning in your TEFL career, you don't need a lot of money, because all you want to do is travel. And if you've got enough money to eat out sometimes and travel to the next place, you're perfectly happy to do it on a shoestring. You take pride in it. How far can you make your little measly wage packet go? I used to be slightly scornful of people that graduated university and got proper jobs and worked 12-hour days for a law firm or whatever, and earned loads of money. And I used to think, oh, great, they get 2 weeks holiday a year in the Maldives. So what? I'm traveling all the time. And I was just like, you don't need money. And I think that attitude embeds, and then you're not going to be given a pension where you are. And you just get into this really present focused mindset, but also you feel kind of proud of yourself that you manage on very little money, and you're not a materialistic person. You don't care about having the latest this, that, and the other gadget. It becomes part of your identity, and then you don't lose it. And, a lot of TEFL teachers are married to people with higher earning jobs. That's how they manage it.
Yeah, that's so true. I think a lot of people, well, some people get into TEFL as well to travel. And so you assume that when you're doing that, you're not going to earn much money. And then some people fall in love with it, and then they make that into a career. And then you don't really think about the money side of things. You just assume that everybody is getting paid hourly, like poorly. And the language school I worked for offered salaries, but it was actually more beneficial to work 15 hours a day teaching back to back, rather than take the salary, because the hourly pay was low, but it inevitably was higher than the salary. So it's unfortunate, really, isn't it? Because it's one of those careers that people do because they're passionate about it, so 100%.
It's like anything, if you love it, music, art, writing, if you love it, the chances are very high that it won't pay, because the world knows that people like you will do it out of dedication and passion and love. And so they don't need to reward you financially, because you're going to do it anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the same goes for freelancers as well, in terms of earning money. Sometimes they feel like maybe they can't negotiate fees, or they just accept what's given to them, and you take on all the projects and hope that your money grows, and then inevitably work doesn't come and you have to spend it. So it's really great that you're educating people in ELT specifically about this, 100%. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your course and what you teach on it and why you started doing it in the first place to teach others about it.
Yeah, well, I very specifically chose the ELT sector to focus on because these are my people. I understand why they are not investing. I understand where they are financially, like, because I was them 2 years ago, and I still am them, really, because it's not like I suddenly became rich. I just put my money somewhere.
Yeah.
But and you know, watching it grow. So that's why I chose that sector. And designing a course was just such a no-brainer to me because I spent so long, you know, writing educational materials, working on other people's courses. I know how to do that. And the course itself is 6 weeks. And it's six weeks of not intensive study. People think that they're going to have to just really knuckle down and I'm going to have to learn about finance now. And they think it's going to be this huge burden. Can I get through it? It's easy. I used to do it 90-minute live classes a week. And then there was a bit of homework. And now I do it video, the next course that starts on January 23rd, which is before this podcast comes out, so it'll be halfway through. It's going to be video based, and I've, you know, halved the amount of time people have to spend on the actual input. So what I teach is the first 4 weeks are really, what is there to invest in? Because people don't know that. They might have some vague idea that there's the stock market, but there's stock market bonds, and there's some other things that are shorter term, different types of investments. So teach all of that so people know, how do you invest in the stock market? Should you be buying individual shares? And the answer is no. Which is what most people think investing is. So really, the first 4 weeks is just the information. What is there out there? And how do you understand it? And then the next 2 weeks, there's a lot of focus on mindset, because there's a lot of misconceptions and fear around all of this kind of money stuff. People think they're going to lose all their money. Because they don't understand that it's a little bit of risk you're asking people to take on. Not a lot, because you're not asking them to trade, which is very risky. So it's really coming back to the mindset over and over again, because the thing that will hold you back all the time is your mindset. You know, if you don't get in the headspace of, I'm going to regularly make payments into this, just like you pay your Netflix, just like you pay your electricity bill, just like you pay everything else. If you don't tell yourself, I'm going to do this and I know why, then you won't do it. And also, if you are not aware, and this happened to me, and I'm much better now because I've learned, if you see because at some point your accounts, if you invest in the stock market or something like that, your account will go down. Sometimes you will see that you've got less money than you put in, or less money than you had last week, or whatever it is. But that's just that moment, or that day, or that week, or that year, because it could be a year or longer. But if you wait long enough, because you understand that it's a long game, you won't panic and pull your money out, which is what I did when I started, because I didn't know what I was doing. I pulled a load of money out. And when it goes down, it's only down on paper. It's not actual loss until you sell it. So like an idiot, I sold, lost some money, and then put it in something that was much riskier. It was just stupid. So these are the things I can stop people doing, because they're coming in, basically, whereas I came at the beginning and learnt by trial and error, they come in with all the knowledge that I've got.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a lot, but it just isn't. Some people get to the end of the course, they're just like, what? Is that it? Is that easy? It's like, yeah, I know. It's that easy. But it's like this big mystery. It's so gatekeepered, if you can use that as an adjective, because you know, when you start looking at this stuff, you end up speaking to a financial advisor and they say, oh, well, we can do this for you, we can do that for you, we'll manage it all. And you think, oh, it must be really scary and complicated then if they're going to do all this for me, and they're going to charge me this amount of money, so it must be really important. They're hardly doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's really important. And I like what you said about you did it through trial and error, and then you're passing that information on to someone else. So it's not like someone else, okay, there's a bit of risk involved, of course, with anything, but you have taken that risk yourself. So you have tried it and tested it. So yeah, that's really good. So would you say that you focus more on the long-term investments rather than the short-term investments?
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't mean, I mean, there's different things when you say long-term. Stock market, you have to be looking at 5 years, 10, 20 preferably. You don't want to put anything in the stock market that you want. If you want that money sooner than that, if it's for a house deposit in 2 years' time, it cannot go in the stock market. That's, you know, you might be lucky, but it's not the right place for it to be. So it's understanding okay, what are the things where I can get my money out? So when I say like short-term investments, I don't really mean short-term you'll have loads of money. I mean short-term, it's available to you to take it out before, 10 years have passed or something like that. Because you have to, I saved somebody the other day, right at the end of the course, actually, because we talked about having an emergency fund. And she said, oh, I'm going to put my emergency fund in the stock market. I'm like, no, your emergency fund has to be where you can access it straight away. And she just missed something somewhere along the way that we've done in the classes. So I'm kind of there catching people. I keep people in a Facebook if they want to be there, a Facebook group after the course, because inevitably people have more questions. And then you've got other people to help you answer them. There's one of the women in there who's now like, she's practically like a mortgage and financial advisor, dishing out advice to everybody else. It's brilliant. She knew nothing a few months ago.
That's incredible. And what a feeling for you as well, that you're
Yeah.
educating people, and then they're benefiting from that as well. So you've mentioned sort of like the emergency fund and also long-term investing in the stock market. So are you sort of saying that it's better to have different piles, I say piles, could be a small pile of money, rather than putting everything, all your eggs in one basket?
Yes, you've actually hit on one of the 3 pillars of investing, and those are allocation, diversification, and fees. I won't explain them all, but basically diversification means having things in different types of investments, because stocks behave differently from bonds, behave differently from property, behave differently from other kinds of things. You need to have things that are behaving differently from each other, because when something is down or not working, it will be weighed out by something that is, and then the cycle will move on and it will change. And so what you're looking for is a range of things, because you're not going to have everything working all at once. So I've actually, kind of by coincidence at the moment, half of my money is in stuff that's doing badly, because the stock market last year just had the worst ever, and so did the bonds. Thank you, Kwasi Kwarteng. And the other things are doing great. And so they're cancelling each other out. But, in a couple of years, that could be completely turned around, but that'll be okay, because that's why I've got all of these different things in the first place.
And with your long-term investments, could that be up to the person for how long they want to keep it in? You said maybe 5, 10, 20 years. If they wanted to keep it in for 1 year and someone else wanted to keep it in for 10 years, is that sort of the long term that you're talking about?
Yeah, you have to put a strategy together. We do that at the end of the course, because it's about you, your goals, your tolerance for risk. It's not one size fits all. And if somebody came out of the course being invested in exactly the same things as me, then that means that I haven't done a very good job of teaching them, because you have to do it for you and not, what somebody else is doing.
Absolutely. And would you say that you focus more on British? Because I know British and American like investing is a little bit different. Obviously in the UK it's more like penny stocks rather than the US, which moves quite rapidly. Would you focus on both, or would you prefer one or the other?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that the UK is just penny stocks. You can still invest in big multinational companies from wherever you are, and you can invest in the American stock market. There isn't like this barrier to where you can buy things in. It takes longer to explain than I could do it in a couple of minutes. But anyway, you can invest in whatever you like, but where you are does affect things like the tax regulations, the platforms you can use, the mechanics of it. The principles are the same for everybody. And so what I teach really, because I'm not country specific, but I do happen to know more about Britain and Spain, just because these are the 2 places that I sort of have financially been a resident. And I know a bit about America, because a lot of the things that I was learning from were American. But really, once you've learned the general principles, you know what everything is. What I'm aiming to do is give people the tools to then go and look it up in their own context. Because once you understand what it all is, you know enough to go and look at the products and the things that are available to you and the platforms that are available to you and go, oh, this one's right for me. This one's got too high fees. This one's, whatever else is not quite right with it. This one doesn't have enough diversification, whatever that is. So you'll just go and set your stuff up. But yeah, you are going to have to do a bit of research at the end, because ultimately choosing the platforms, it's like choosing when you go on holiday, which airline am I going to fly with? I've got to research the hotels. Is that, but that's not hard, and nor is this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned sort of financial like targets, essentially, in the fact that like have an idea in your mind of what you might be comfortable with. So would you say that it's good to have a target in mind, or does that sort of hinder you in a way from hoping to reach that, and obviously paying too much attention, and like you said, seeing it go down potentially and then panicking and taking it out? Because I know you've gone through the trial and error, but everyone's got a sort of a different tolerance to risk, haven't they? So
yeah, they have, and that does influence what you will invest in the end. But I don't think that you need to set an amount in terms of, I want to have £10,000 by this time, whenever, because you don't really know what's going to happen. And the thing is, some of the investment products have a fixed return. You know exactly what it is. You would be able to calculate, as long as nothing, things can go wrong, little bits of it, but you could kind of predict. And then the other one, like the stock market, you can't really predict it. So it's more, your very longer term investments are probably the things that you're planning to retire on, or to take cut your working amount by half or something like that. But there is something, there's the FIRE movement, which is this retire early, financial independence, retire early movement. They do have a number, and they calculate it according to a certain formula, and that's that when they retire, they hit that number. But that's, FIRE is a branch of investing. It's much more of a lifestyle thing. But what I'm really trying to teach people is just grow it. It's going to be more than you've got if you just leave it in the savings account, where it probably is now. And therefore, that more is maybe not exactly something to calculate as a specific figure, but it is more than you have now, and it will grow. The longer you can leave it, the more it will grow. And the numbers are ridiculous. I do it on my course with some graphs where I show people that this is the power of compounding on this amount of money, and it's mental, actually.
I think it's important, isn't it? Compounding, again, in itself is something that maybe people don't know about. Can you just explain briefly what that means?
Yeah, so compounding interest, or compound interest, is just interest that grows on the interest. So when you had an amount of money and it grew in a year, now that extra bit of money is going to grow as well. And that doesn't sound very exciting until you look at a graph and you see it goes like this, and then it just goes zoom, and it's exponential growth. And after a while, you can turn, I never remember the figures off the top of my head, but you could turn, I had 50,000 when I started. So like, that's what I put in, and it just stayed 50,000 because I wasn't doing anything with it. And, by investing, I can turn it into 80,000. I can turn it into 140,000, depending on how long I leave it there. And so compounding is just crazy. How can you get 144,000 out of 50,000? Well, because if it's earning 10% a year for 20 years, that's what it'll do.
Definitely. And if you just leave it in a bank account, with inflation and with money increasing at the rate it does, £20,000 in 20 years will not be £20,000. So
no, it's shocking. It's shocking. And that's the thing. People will tell you how much they fear the risk of investing. You go, that money sitting in your bank account, that's not at risk of losing money. It's guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed. So, since 2000, the pound has become worth, I think it's 44% less in 22 years. And I'm not including like the inflation kind of environment now, but just if you look at the stats from the last 20 years, that's 44%.
Yeah.
You'd be hard pressed to lose that in 20 years in the stock market.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Have you, just thinking about compounding, have you read, this is obviously slightly off topic, have you read Warren Buffett's book, his autobiography?
No, but I would love to. Like I said, I've got this pile of books I'm working through, but there's a lot. Warren Buffett's just the source of so many amazing quotes.
Absolutely. It's a thick book. It's a really thick book, but he speaks a lot about compounding, because that's obviously how he became a billionaire, with his compounding. So we mentioned pensions earlier. I just want to sort of talk about that, because I think like you said, a lot of people are afraid of pensions, but also it's a boring word. People don't know what's involved in it. So do you recommend freelancers and people in ELT in general setting up a private pension?
Absolutely. So it's when you ask yourself that question, what you should really say is, do I want some free money that I can access later on? And why would the answer ever be no to that? So the reason to have a pension is, one, because I think what happens to a lot of people is they think, well, there's a state pension, boring, that'll look after me. One, it's hardly any money. Two, you don't know what age you're actually going to be able to access it. And three, it might not even be around in the future. So you can't rely on that. And so a private pension is what you need to do if you don't have a workplace pension, because employees, especially in the UK, it's you're automatically opted in now and you have to opt out. And some people who don't understand anything about all of this stuff will opt out, and they think they're winning. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to pay that money to that pension pot, not realizing that they're taking money out of their own future pocket. So when you say, you know, so yes, I want some free money later on, that's when you're going to organize yourself a private pension. But you are going to be better off doing that if you understand about investing, because firstly, that private pension is an investment. It's invested in the stock market, bonds, and possibly real estate. And you need to understand the fees, because they're impacting you because of compounding interest. The effect of that fee that sounds really small, maybe it's 1%, you're like, well, that's a small number. No, it's not in investment terms. If you've got a 1% fee on any pension product, you are losing thousands of money across your lifetime. Thousands of pounds, sorry, thousands of money. You're losing thousands across your lifetime. And so you have to understand that, because once you do, you'll go and pick cheaper products. And it's knowing these are the expensive ones, these are the cheaper ones. Again, can't explain it in 2 seconds. But once people have that knowledge, they go and they start changing stuff. And so you have that knowledge and that power, and now you're going to more efficiently use your private pension. And then it's just a case of committing to it and understanding why you're committing to it, because the advantage of a pension is free money as well, not just that it's going to grow, but there's a tax break. What a pension is just money that you can invest that is also added to by the government, basically topped up by the government. Depends which country you're in, how much they're going to top that up by. And then it's money that you're not allowed to access before a certain date. But apart from those two things, it's just the same as any other investment product that you could have.
And where would you say someone would even start thinking about pensions? Because there's so much information out there. Would you recommend like a pensions advisor, or just simply having a look online yourself?
I think it's very hard because there's just so much. Where do you start with that? So you could go to an advisor. If you do that, make sure that they are just charging you for the consultation. They're not going to make commission on any of the products, so they have to be independent, not because otherwise they're just a salesperson who's going to put you into the products that they make money off. And the fees will be higher than you wanted to pay because you just wouldn't know. So that's the first thing, is the advice must be independent. And you can look at Martin Lewis, the money saving expert guy. He's got a list of independent financial advisors. But if you do that, you are still going to have to go and do it. And I think that honestly, the best way is to do a course like mine. But it's because then you spend 6 weeks, you know exactly what you're talking about. And you will just never feel like, I don't understand this. And that feeling of I don't understand this often just puts people off doing it. And then another year will go past and you've just lost that compounding effect for that year. So I think the worst mistake to make would be to just hand it all over to the financial advisor and be like, okay, whatever is the fee, I'll pay that. You just take this away from me, because they will make a fortune and it will be your money. You could have that thousands and thousands of pounds that will be in their pocket instead of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're doing a wonderful thing by having a course and spreading the word 100% about pensions, because it's something I've been thinking about in the last few weeks and months. And you hit the nail on the head when you say you put it off and you put it off, because there's so much information, you know, that you don't know where to start essentially. And then you're like, do I trust these people? They're going to take all my money. Yes. But, you know, it's just finding that right person. So an independent person is great. Where can people find out more about you and your course and what you're doing?
So the website is www.chilledinvestor.com, because that summed up the whole sort of ethos. Like, it should be chilled, it should be relaxed. It's not a big stressful deal. There's no adrenaline involved actually. And so it's just totally chilled thing. You're just like, yeah, okay, now I know this and I'll put my money in and it's fine. And I don't panic and I don't get excited. I'm just chilled about it. And the place, you know, that website does have some information about me. I've got blogs from the past. If people look at my name, they're quite likely to come across like my ELT writing background. But if you find me on LinkedIn, I really love answering people's questions. You can contact me through the website as well. And, you know, people, sometimes they ask me absolutely brilliant questions like, excellent, I'm going to write a blog post or a newsletter about that. So really, you know, you're never wasting my time by asking me stuff.
That's amazing. And you said once people have done the course, they can join the Facebook group as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise. It's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you, and I'm 100% sure there will be lots of questions. So yeah, do search for Nicola on LinkedIn, and of course sign up to her course as well. Thank you so much, and yeah, speak to you soon.
Thank you.